You're listening to the Catholic Wives with Toxic In-Laws podcast. Today's episode is about what saying yes to toxic in-laws is really costing you. Are you a Catholic wife grappling with challenging in-laws? The Catholic Wives with Toxic In-Laws podcast is your sanctuary for navigating the sometimes stormy seas of life with toxic in-laws while being validated for what you've experienced. Join me, your host, Miriam Susan, a Catholic wife who's weathered 3 decades of in-law drama, as we tackle the tough issues you're dealing with head on. Hi, I'm Miriam Susan, and welcome to this week's episode, where we're going to be talking about a difficult topic, and that is saying yes to our toxic in-laws. Now, today's scripture reference is from the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verses 4 through 5, and this is from the New Revised Standard Version, Catholic Edition, and it says, "All must test their own work. Then that work, rather than their neighbor's work, will become a cause for pride. For all must carry their own loads." And I'll get into this later on in the episode because you might be thinking this is kind of a weird scripture reference for a podcast to talk about. But today we are going to be talking about what saying yes to our toxic in-laws really is costing us. And we are in November. We are thick into the season of getting texts, getting calls, getting the questions, well, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And you talking with your husband and your family, what are we doing for Thanksgiving? Or maybe you're hearing things like, well, we always do Christmas at our house when it's your toxic in-laws. Or you might be hearing things like, well, the kids would be so disappointed if we didn't do things like we've always done it. So you probably are feeling that knot in your stomach that comes with all the stress of this time of year. And you probably want to say something, but you don't even know what to say. And so you say yes, because that's what a good Catholic wife is supposed to do, right? But here's what I'm noticing in our lives and from women in this just crazy community that we're in, is that we can say yes with our mouths while our bodies and our marriages and our families and our peace that are all screaming, no, we're doing that. So today I want to help you see something that you might not have connected yet. Not because I have all the answers, because I absolutely do not have all the answers, but because sometimes we need somebody in our lives to hold up a mirror to see things that we just don't see. So let's begin by what may be happening in your house right now. So we're approaching Thanksgiving, and maybe you said yes to hosting Thanksgiving, even though you are exhausted, even though you don't really want to. So when you said yes to hosting Thanksgiving, here's what you actually were saying yes to. You are saying yes to shopping and cooking and cleaning before and after everybody comes over. You are in charge of managing everybody's dietary preferences and their opinions. You are also saying yes to your children being overstimulated and their routine just kind of thrown out the window. And you're also losing a day off with your immediate family if you don't have to work. So let's think about the next holiday, which is Christmas. And when you say yes to this idea that, well, we always do Christmas morning at my parents' house, what you're also probably saying yes to is your kids opening presents in somebody else's living room, no lazy morning in the pajamas with your husband and your children, just soaking in the joy and the beauty and the magic of Christmas and rushing to be somewhere else in the morning when you wanted it to be slow. And it probably means going to Mass with your in-laws at their parish at the time they want to go, and you missing out on experiencing the Christmas Mass in your home parish with the people that you generally go to Mass with. And then, when you say yes to letting your in-laws plan your holiday schedule, what you're saying yes to is your family being double booked or triple booked, having no margin for any rest or spontaneity in this very busy season, not even an opportunity to just kind of sit and contemplate Advent and thinking about all of the things that the church would want us to focus on, right? Because we're just so busy doing all these things because of somebody else's schedule that is now being laid on top of our existing busy calendars. And we're also, when we say yes to letting our in-laws kind of dictate our holiday schedule, we are teaching our children that the preferences and wants of other people are more important than our own family's needs. So you might be thinking, but that's just what the holidays are like. Everybody's tired. Everybody goes through this. And yes, to an extent, the holidays can be exhausting, but I need you to pause and I need you to notice something. These are the costs that you can see: the exhaustion, the calendars that are crazy, the extra burden of having to host everybody at your house for Thanksgiving and all that entails. But there are deeper costs that come that are harder to put a name to. So I want to talk just briefly about the hidden costs that come when we say yes to our in-laws and their plans and their desires and what that means for us. So there's a cost to our marriage. And every time we say yes, when we, in our hearts and in our bodies, feel like we need to say no, we are teaching our husband that our voice doesn't matter as much as keeping his parents happy. And that builds resentment that shows up in small comments that we make, in withdrawing from our husbands, or having that feeling that we're just roommates instead of life partners. And your husband might not even know that you're feeling all these things because you're so good at just going along, not rocking boat, trying to be a peacekeeper instead of a peacemaker. And that's a very subtle difference. Peacekeeping is generally when we just kind of give up our sense of peace for somebody else's, and we try to keep the peace with somebody else. But really what that does is just, it makes them temporarily happy because usually that's never enough. And then we just have to deal with the chaos and the stress. And that's the cost that we, have to pay. So we might make somebody else temporarily happy while we are just miserable. Now, it also costs something of our children. So when we say yes to things that violate our parenting values, it damages the relationship we have with our children. So that could be too much sugar, staying up too late, having different rules that go against what your family's rules are, or just how you do things. It also teaches them that Grandma and Grandpa's preferences, they override Mom's wisdom. It makes you in a place of lesser importance in your child's life than their grandparents. And that is not how things are supposed to be. Go back to the proper order of a Catholic family. You know that this is a core thing with me. And when your importance gets replaced by grandparents, that is not the proper order. That is not how things are supposed to be. Grandparents should not be in a position of greater authority than the parents. Now, I know there are exceptions when the parents are just out of the picture. There's, abuse situations, whether it's drug, alcohol, physical, whatever. That is an exception. And we have to acknowledge that, yes. But that is not the way that God designed it. God did not design grandparents to be in a greater position of authority over children than the parents. So your children are also learning by saying yes to all this stuff, all this chaos, is they're learning that family means chaos and obligation, not peace and true, genuine connection and unconditional love. And our children are watching us shrink and not be who we are. And they're learning that that's just what women do. And so we were probably taught that. And now we are showing that to our children. We are demonstrating that. We are living that out to our children. And then there's a cost to us, right? Because if things hurt our marriage and things hurt our children, then things hurt us as well. So there's a cost that we pay that says that, our instincts can't be trusted. We then reinforce this belief that being a good Catholic wife, good Catholic daughter-in-law means that we should be a doormat. And it shouldn't. And it also is costing us emotional energy because we are trying to manage everybody else's feelings instead of stewarding our own families and protecting our own families. And then we just get to be so busy trying to not be the problem or the villain that we can't even see that we aren't the problem, that we aren't the villain, that it is this lack of respect for our family's autonomy that is the real problem. And here's a cost that truly breaks my heart. When you say yes to everything to try to keep the peace, you're actually saying no to the life that God designed for your marriage and for your family. Because saying yes to all these outside expectations means that we're not observing the proper order of a Catholic family. Remember, that's God first, spouse second, children third, and everybody else comes after. And so if we imagine that Target logo with God being the center red circle, our spouses being the white circle, and our children being the outside red circle, we start inserting other things, and then it's not a circle anymore. So we've got grandparents coming in, and aunts and uncles, and cousins, and in-laws, and all these things. And it costs us the life that God designed for us. The life that He had in mind when He brought us together with our husbands and gave us these children. It gets messed up and distorted because of all these expectations when we say yes to outside influences. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't ever say yes, that we never host Thanksgiving, that we never, spend Christmas at the grandparents. That's not what I'm saying. It's when it's a consistent pattern of just ignoring the needs that our family has, that our immediate family has, over the preferences and desires of people who just don't even respect us and don't see us as an independent family from them. So now let me go back to today's scripture reference, and I'll just read it again. It's from Galatians chapter 6, verses 4 through 5. And again, this is from the New Revised Standard Version Catholic Edition. And it says, "All must test their own work. Then that work, rather than their neighbor's work, will become a cause for pride, for all must carry their own loads." Now, in this scripture, St. Paul is not telling us to be self-centered. He's telling us that we each have a load. We each have a responsibility that God has given to us. And our first load after our relationship with God is to our marriage and to our family that we've created with our husband. Remember, proper order of a Catholic family: God first, spouse second, children third. And when you say yes to things that deplete your ability to carry this load well, you're not being virtuous. You're not being a martyr. You're being unwise. And when you say yes to everyone and their preferences, it's not being humble. It might actually be a way that we are unknowingly avoiding the harder work of stewarding what God gave us to steward. So we have to remember that, our in-laws or toxic parents will often use honor your father and mother to manipulate us and to control us. And especially this time of year, especially during the holidays, they will use that to try to control the agenda for our family's life. But what they don't want you to know, what the enemy does not want you to know, is that you can honor your parents, you can honor your toxic in-laws without letting them do that. You can honor them by protecting your family, by protecting your marriage, by protecting your peace, by being that good spouse, by loving God and teaching your children to love God, by being a cheerful giver, not one that totally leaves nothing left for your family. You can be a cheerful giver. You can be a generous person with your time and with your resources and with your finances, and still guard your family. Being a generous person doesn't mean that you give everything to people outside of those circles. It means you can give greatly and generously, but your primary vocation is that of a wife and a mother. And so you have to have something in reserve for those core relationships. So, where does this leave you? Now, I'm not telling you what to do with your holidays. In fact, for this holiday season, it might be too late. Although I would still say that it's never too late to decide that you're going to pull back and you're going to do what your family needs you to do. Even if it's on the day of Thanksgiving. Yes, it might disappoint a lot of people, but if something were to come up and you just know that you need to spend that day only with your family, you can make a genuine apology. I'm sorry. I know we were going to host Thanksgiving. I know this throws a wrench into everybody's plans, but we need to do what is best for our immediate family today. And unfortunately, that means that we cannot host anymore. You can do that. You absolutely can. Will it be easy? No. Will there be a lot of fallout? Yes. But you can still do that if that's what you feel like God is calling you to do. Because this is between you, your husband, and the Lord. That's it. And anybody else outside that, they can feel all their feelings that they want, but they also need to respect your family and respect that your family is an independent, autonomous unit, not just in the family, but in God's eyes. So what I'm trying to do with this podcast is to invite you into seeing clearly what is actually happening when you say yes to all these things. And so this week, I want you to notice, what does saying yes to whatever it is, whether it's a football game, whether it's hosting Thanksgiving, whether it's going to see the Nutcracker with the family, whether it's going to Mass together in a place that you normally don't go to Mass, or just a disruption in your family schedule. Think about, what does saying yes cost you? Not in theory, but in reality. What does it actually cost you? And I want you to notice it in your body. Where are you feeling it? I tend to hold stress and carry it in my shoulders. And this morning I woke up and I've got a pain in my back. And sometimes I feel it in my hips. Notice where you feel it. If I'm really anxious, if I'm really stressful, I feel it in my chest. I feel it in my neck, like a heat that comes over me. Think about that. Think about any resentment that you feel because you've said yes to these things that you didn't really want to say yes to. And look at your level of exhaustion. Or for me recently, it's been all the things on my mind. And it's like I can't even rest because if I'm sitting down doing one thing, I've got this ticker going in my head of all the thousands of other things that I'm supposed to be doing. I've started to use little note cards to write things down to just get it out of my head so it's not like bouncing around like a pinball. If you've ever seen a pinball machine, you shoot the ball and it just kind of bounces all over the surfaces. That's what it feels like in my brain a lot of times, especially recently because there's just a lot of stuff going on. But look at that and think about, are these other things that you've added onto your plate by saying yes? Is it adding another ball in your pinball machine that's bouncing around? And then you add in another ball because there's, obligations at your parish, or there's another ball. Think about those kinds of things. How many pinballs have you got bouncing around in your head because of the yeses that you have allowed into your life? And I want you to consider all of these things because you can't change anything that you don't see. Just like I didn't see the connection between the physical stress on my body, the physical strains on my body because of the toxicity and the relationship with my in-laws. I didn't see that for so many years, so I couldn't change it. So I want you to see what is happening so that you can change it. Because once you see things clearly, then you might start asking yourself some different questions. Now, you don't have to have this all figured out today, but you also don't have to keep pretending that there is no cost to you saying yes. And if dealing with the holiday season has you stressed out, then I invite you to come and join me in my community, Catholic Wives Plus Toxic In-Laws. Go to toxicinlaws.com and you can find us in a community where we're talking about how to handle the holidays. And you'll be in great company with other women who are in a very similar situation that you are in. We have monthly Q&A questions. We have a monthly training that we do all on certain themes. And for November, it is handling the holidays. So if you would like to just feel less alone this holiday season, I invite you to come to toxicinlaws.com and join us in that community. And I just pray that, if you feel like you can't say no and that you have to say yes, that at least you go into it knowing what you're getting into. And it's not just a simple yes, that there's a cost. Every time we say yes, it means we're saying no to something else. And so I just pray that you do find some opportunities to nurture a sense of peace with yourself, with your husband, and with your children this very busy holiday season. God bless you. Go in peace. Disclaimer. All content and information on this podcast and our website, including our programs, products, and or services, is for information and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional medical, psychiatric, or mental health advice of any kind, and does not establish any kind of professional client relationship by your listening to this podcast or use of my website. A professional client relationship with you is only formed after we have expressly entered into a written agreement with you that you have signed, including our fee structure and other terms to work with you in a specific matter. Although we strive to provide accurate general information, the information presented here is not a substitute for any kind of professional advice, and you should not rely solely on this information. Always consult a professional in the area for your particular needs and circumstances prior to making any professional, medical, or mental health related decisions.